Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special NADA edition of Industry Insider. My name is Matt Jones, and joining me today is Carrie Weiss to help me host the show.
Hey, Matt, how's it going?
Everything's good. How are you?
It's day 2 of NADA virtual, a whole nother world for us.
A whole nother world. If you caught in yesterday, you know I'm bitter about not eating New Orleans gumbo at NADA like we should be, and I'm still just as mad about it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we got to move on at some point, but it is kind of heartbreaking that we are missing NADA in my favorite city in terms of NADA, which is New Orleans. So
yeah,
move on to that.
I'm with you. Well, yeah, okay, I'll move on and we'll talk about today's special edition of Industry Insider, which is brought to you by TrueCar Military. Now, TrueCar Military is actually our fastest growing channel, which enables dealers to engage with a large military audience. We're talking about 47 million people in this audience. This includes active military, veterans, and their families. And for those of you who are not familiar with TrueCar, here is a quick introduction.
Yes, I love that video. It gets me hyped up. It makes me feel like I'm on the floor of NADA. So we're just gonna go with that. But
yes,
we're really excited to be meeting with dealers. We have over 15,000 dealers on our program. 8 to 10 million consumers that are shopping on our site, and we want to meet with you, even though we're still virtual at NADA. And we wanted to encourage not only meetings but to give back to the community. We have a passion for the military community, as you saw in the video, and we are embarking on what we're calling the 21K challenge. And so what that entails is that for every dealer that meets with us during NADA, whether you're registered for NADA or not, we're going to donate $100 to the disabled American veteran for each of those meetings, up to $11,000. And then we're going to add in another $10,000 and split that to 4 dealerships that we choose to give to their charities of choice. So we got the $11,000 for each of those visits that we have at NADA, plus the $10,000, which equals the 21K challenge. So we hope that you'll set up a meeting. Matt, I know we're going to be announcing the winner of those 4 dealers that we're choosing to give money to their charities of choice on Friday in a special Industry Insider show. And it's going to feature Corey Remsburg, who is our ambassador of our Driven to Drive program. This is a program that gives vehicles to disabled American veterans. And we're also going to have a representative from Disabled American Veterans Organization as well, David Riley. And then we'll announce the winners as well. So it's going to be a lot of excitement. Matt, how can they meet with us or schedule an appointment?
You know what? It's very easy. Go to TrueCar.com/NADA 2021 to book an appointment. Only takes a couple minutes. That appointment's going to help us send an additional $100 to DAV. So please do it. TrueCar.com/NADA 2021.
Great. Well, we have a lot of excitement. And I do want to just mention one little plug that if you meet with us, we actually have a special announcement that we'll be making. You saw that we have TrueCar Military Channel. We actually power over 500 different automotive buying programs. And we just announced to our dealers this week a very big partner that I can't even mention. You got to meet with us one-on-one that we just signed this week. They are in the military community. That's all I can say. So set up time with us and we're going to share with you that announcement of this military partner. All right, so Matt, let's jump into Industry Insider. What is Industry Insider all about?
Industry Insider is, something that you and I launched last April. We've done about 30 shows or so. And the idea was to actually really understand that the industry needed a little bit of guidance because we were all in this pandemic. We hadn't been there. So what we did was we created Industry Insider as a platform to bring in industry's brightest and best minds, have them drop their pieces of knowledge and share it with a wider dealer body so that everybody could actually just get a little bit better. But for 2021, we've decided to open up the gates a little bit, and we are expanding the conversation further than just dealers to dealers. We're now bringing in industry big minds, which leads us to our big guest today. Would you like to introduce him, Carrie?
Yeah, I would. This is a friend of ours. This is an industry expert. I want to introduce Glenn Pasch, the CEO of PCG Digital, who is also a featured speaker at NADA. Welcome, Glenn.
How are you? Yay!
Woo! Where's the crowd noise? Woo, fireworks. So, Glenn, first of all, congratulations for speaking at NADA this year.
Thank you.
How many years have you spoken at NADA? Just curious.
I think off and on. I think last year I did not. I chose not to last year because I think the previous year I spoke twice, but that was one of those you got to speak 3 or 4 times, and it just was crazy. So I think probably about 8 years now I've been doing it.
Whoa, that's like, I don't think people realize how impressive that is. I've only spoken one time at NADA. We met Steve yesterday, Steve Russler, who that was his first time this year speaking.
Right.
So it's like, it's not easy to get chosen to speak at NADA. So 8 times. I mean, you're like Tom Brady.
Yeah.
I hope he's okay with that, Carrie.
I need rain.
Tom Brady made all of us 40-year-old and older people feel really good, right? Like during
it was good. I did feel bad for Patrick Mahomes. He ran around more in the backfield than anything else. He was just getting chased down. It was sad.
So can you give us a little background on PCG Digital and what do you guys do?
Sure. PCG Digital, it's a full service digital marketing firm. We specialize, probably about 80% of our clientele are tier 3 automotive dealerships. We do consulting with manufacturers and large groups in terms of digital retailing consulting and marketing consulting. But our bread and butter is really helping dealers with their online presence, SEO, SEM, social media to generate more sales opportunities, as well as educating them. And that's where we all met, previously also at our conferences that we host throughout the year to help educate the dealer community, because the more they know, the better we can do our job as an agency.
I love it. And yesterday, when you spoke at NADA, and your workshop was on conversational commerce and why conversational commerce is key for digital retail and consumers. So for folks who are watching, we knew that was going to be his topic, and that's why we really wanted him to come on the show today to share with you guys as well the importance of conversational commerce, especially in this new world, and why it's so key for digital retailing.
Right.
So I want to just give everybody a quick preference and thank you again for stopping into our show.
Now, I just also one other question, Glenn, before we jump into your topic at NADA. Sure. Do you want to give a little background on you, like your automotive career? How did you get into automotive?
Well, yeah, I sort of stumbled into it because I worked in hospitality for years. I was an actor for a long time. And so that meant that you waited tables and worked in restaurants in New York City. And I always liked restaurants. That's the way I made my money when I was coming up, high school, did that. And then I left that and I started working with companies on customer service, because that's what you do in hospitality. The whole game is customer service. Food is food, and it's all about the experience. And that then I ended up in customer service, call centers, handling inbound customer service for companies like American Express. And so that's where my training and building processes came, so that I could franchise and expand call centers or go open call centers to be able to help them with their processes. And then after that, I started my own company. But at that time, my brother Brian had started our agency. He saw SEO, and so he was helping me build my company, and I traded services. He taught me how to blog, taught me how to speak. I actually spoke at Digital Dealer as my other company before I even did it as an agency, because he said they need help in customer service. And I said, and it was funny, I found my old presentation deck that was from, whatever it was 11 years ago. And I said, I could wipe out the data, probably could use a lot of this even today, because we're still working on it. But automotive just happened to be a vertical that a few of Brian's early clients were car dealers. And back then, this is 2010-ish, I think, 2010. That was back when the forums, online forums, Ralph Pollia was one of the ones who, who just passed away. He had one, automotive digital marketing. I think it was ADM, and there's a few of these other ones. And people would just sit online. It was Clubhouse, but email. Think of it that way. We would just argue all night about SEO and marketing, and you started to meet people that way. And it just happened that at that time, Digital Dealer started and conferences started, and people were speaking and educating, and that's the way we built our company. And there was a lot of money being spent, and we just fell into it, and we're really good at it. And that was the vertical that took off for us. So we said, well, let's just play in the sandbox that people know who we are. And as I said, we still do non-automotive, but people know who we are and really are coming to us. So, double down on the industry,
Before, okay, we're going to jump in a second, but I expect that the people who are watching this, Glenn, the ones who may not be familiar with you, they're going to want to know how they can follow you. They're going to want to know how they can engage. So we know that you speak at NADA. We know you speak at a lot of conferences, but What else are you doing that's like open that folks can get to if they want to be able to follow you and get some of your learnings?
Fantastic. So LinkedIn, you can connect with me there, or, I post a lot of articles there. My blogs are usually on our homepage and our own website, pcgdigital.com, our blog site there. But I host a podcast that's launched every single week. It's called You're in Charge, Now What? Back here, personal branding. Kerry was on it, and I had a great time. And then if you are on Clubhouse, I host 2 rooms, Monday at noon talking about automotive marketing, on Friday talking about leadership. But if you want to connect with me, I'm easy to find. Twitter, everything is just my name. And I love connecting with people and helping people any way I can.
All right. Well, to the folks who are watching, if you got a question, drop it in. We can share it with Brian. Okay, I'm done. Now, Carrie,
did you just call me Brian? You owe me $1.
Did I just say?
You owe me $1.
You can ask for Glenn.
All right.
My apologies. I owe you
We're going to mute Matt now.
Oh my God, Matt, you need to just literally go into the.
No, you have to understand. It's a running joke with my brother where after a few years, he came up to me and he goes, wow, you're making a name for yourself. Someone came up and said, hey, Glenn, I saw you speak. And I said, that was good. And there was one time at one conference, I was in a little New Jersey smartass mood. And on my badge, I just put where my name was. I said, I am not Brian.
So to Matt's defense, you have a lot of siblings, and you guys, I shouldn't say you all look alike, but you actually look very similar.
We do. We do. We're only about 18 months apart, and so people think sometimes we're twins. But yes, you could take all of us and throw us in a room of 100, and all 5 boys, you could find them all really quickly.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I met your other brother. Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, and I know I just met you guys both at the same time. It's always going to be linked in my head.
All good. It's all good.
Just from this on, Matt, just call him Pasch, and then you won't.
Or like my
if you guys have any questions for Pasch, Mr. Pasch, drop them in and we'll get to them.
All right, let's jump in. I know you spoke at NADA, obviously, on conversational commerce. And I know one of the things you talk about, no matter how good your marketing is, once your customer connects with your team, either you're going to bring them into the dealership or you're going to push them away. And in this new era, especially in this new era of digital retailing. So let's tell me more about that and your thoughts about engaging with customers.
Sure. So the whole concept of digital retailing, you have your people who are proponents, they understand it. But again, the terminology, I think people are getting tired of this concept, but it's just moving towards saying, here's a new way for your customers to communicate with you. It's new. It's your desire to allow the consumer to do some of the process, some of the research, a little more in depth from wherever they are, be it on their phone, at home, or whatever. And then the goal is that if they submit this information back to you, can you retain it and apply it in your process so that when I come to the dealership, I don't have to start at square one again. You meet me where I was with the information I submitted, and now we move forward to make it easier for us. So again, that's where I think we get down the wrong rabbit hole with digital retailing or modern retailing, whatever you want to call it, that everybody thinks everybody wants to buy a car online. I don't think we're there yet. I just think that people want to value their time. I don't think I think if people go backwards 3 years, because that's when the people who are in the market today were 3-4 years ago. What was that process like? It was forms on the website, come into the dealership, and that's it. You are a serious shopper when you show up in my store. And that's changed now. So now that's where that evolution is. And we have to be prepared to be willing to treat that person with the same seriousness as if you showed up in my lot.
That makes a lot of sense. I spent a good portion of my life in working in dealerships. And what you said was exactly spot on. People didn't really get the full breadth of attention until they had foot in the dealership, and maybe to a lesser extent if you had an ongoing conversation over the phone. But to see the way that you've presented it, it's just that was 3 years ago. That's not necessarily now. So when we talk about this new way of conversing with this consumer, what are some of the things that you think people that they're not necessarily doing that's appropriate for this time?
I think it's a cultural shift. It's a mentality shift. This whole concept of allowing some of the true control of decision going to a consumer. In the past, and Matt, if you worked in a dealership, as you were saying, you worked a lot of time there, you were told, don't give price over the phone. If somebody asks for a price, they're just going to shop you. Don't give them a price. Don't give them a price. Now you're going, okay, well, the price is on the website. But still, if you say, well, get today's price, get e-price, whatever button you want to do, I still give you a form. And so I still put a hurdle up there. I'm not getting an answer right now. And so it's really at a point where no other business, I think, e-commerce business, online business, continues to put these hurdles in place. They make it easy for you to connect with somebody in there as an option, meaning that, hey, do you want to chat with somebody right now? Click this button and go. You want to talk to somebody? Click this button, right? And oh, you want the information? Here's the information. So I think some of the mistakes are we're still trying to straddle two different philosophies of engaging with our customers, where I'm saying conversational commerce is there are probably buttons on your website that signal I should get an answer right now. Get e-price. If I click that button, what's your expectation? Give me my price. Right. Not a form that says, give me your name and I'll call you back maybe later, tomorrow, whatever, because theoretically the dealer says, well, now I have that customer name, but guess what? That customer's left. They've gone. They're back in their life. Now I got to chase them down the street to go, hey, I got my price. And they're like, whatever, I'm on to somebody else. So if your button is going to signify to a consumer that I'm going to get a response, ask a question. Okay, that means somebody's going to be on the other end to answer my question. Nope, it's a form. Right? That's what I'm talking about. Even those are baby steps, let alone, in theory, if I say value your trade or get a trade price, why wouldn't that go to somebody in the dealership to say, okay, hey, let's negotiate, get pre-approved. Why not get some help? Or at least give the option on your website to say, do it yourself or talk to somebody right now who can help you. Like, that's where I think this idea of conversational commerce is, how can we have more conversations with the amount of people that come to our website every single month? If you could get 10% of those people, 10% more people talking to your staff, what would that do to your bottom line?
Yeah, you talk about that online experience. And I think, digital retailing just became this buzzword, right? In the industry, everybody's talking about it, and they're still, rightfully so. But I agree with you that I think people or dealers in some cases thought of it as like this widget on your site or these buttons on your site or this like super lead form, on your site. And the challenge in even what we see at times is like that connection with the actual process in the store, right? That the irony of saying digital retailing is it's still very much about the connection between people.
Sure.
Access, right? So talk to me about that. Like, where do you see dealers going wrong from that online to offline experience?
Well, I think part of what you were talking about, I think it's just human nature sometimes, is that we may not think everything through. I mean, it could be in our own personal life, or our diet or whatever it is, or think that how does it affect our whole life? So what happens is, you go to a 20 group, you go to NADA, you get a pitch and you go, oh, that's awesome. That's a great product. And you come and you just go, I found a new product and boom. Versus saying, what's the experience we want to deliver to our customers? What is our experience? And then what does my staff have to do action-wise to deliver that, to make sure that when Carrie or Matt leave, they feel a certain way, right? Going back to a restaurant, right? You were talking earlier about, I want to go have my gumbo and I'm going to go eat, right? But there's probably, if you go to New Orleans, you've been there a few times, you go, I'm going back to that restaurant. Part the food, but part the experience. Now they physically do things in their actions that make you go, oh, I'm being taken care of. So if a dealer goes, that's what we have to do, then you can backtrack and say, does this technology make it easier for my staff to deliver that experience? And does it make it easier for my customers to connect to my team to deliver that experience? Versus, I just got a piece of technology, it doesn't really fit. So part of it is we may have the wrong technology. Number two is we don't think of it how it fits through the whole process end to end. So then to your point is online, it could sound really great. But then when I walk in the door, if there's not a follow through roadmap, whiteboard all the way through, okay, the lead comes in through digital retailing. Who gets it? And what do they do with it? Okay, if it's a strict BDC, great. I set an appointment. How do I transfer that information to the salesperson so they know that they want to lease this Honda Accord for 36 months and they're trading in a Ford Fusion, so that when the salesperson greets them, they go, hey, I see you were talking to Carrie and they told me you want to do this. And where's the Ford Fusion? Versus, hi, what brings you here? So that, I think the handoff is, if there's one place that I think is necessary to look at, that's the handoff. But again, I think backwards, it's sometimes it's the wrong technology for the culture of that store.
Yeah, I love it because you're talking about the culture and the process above everything else, and go backwards from that. How does this fit into the environment that I'm trying to create for my sellers and for my buyers, as opposed to necessarily molding yourself into what the technology is creating for you, or relying strictly on the technology? Because all of the car people will tell you people buy from people, which really means the interaction is important, right?
Yeah, our good friend Tim Cox always says, no car gets sold without a conversation. Right. So the point is, to what you're saying is that, you know, if I have if I'm doing a BDC to a trade off to a salesperson versus I have an internet sales team that's end to end, or my team is going to handle the chats as well versus no, it's going to be out. That's completely different. That pulls you into 2 or 3 or 4 different buckets of technology. But again, it's that thoughtful approach. Now, sometimes the manufacturer is going to give you one, right? Nissan saying, here's our new product that you're all going to use. Oh, okay. Now, do they have an option? I don't know enough if they have an option to bail out on that. But again, I get it. We want to have a consistent process on our website, a consistent tool, no matter what Nissan goes to. But then I hope you're going out into the field and really helping them implement that technology into it and teaching them how to use it to fit it and adapt it to their process, or else you're going to get potentially not great customer interaction when they get to the store, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, and I guess, Matt, something you just talked about is, like you said, you know, I forgot what you exactly said, but about a conversation, right? It's about people. It's about a conversation. And I think part of what I get from this whole term conversational commerce is like, shifting our mindset of what is a conversation, right? There's what happens in the store. There's like a physical conversation, but in this digital world, there's these other touch points that are actually conversation. Yesterday, we talked to Steve Ressler about texting, right? Like that is a conversation.
Sure.
And if we can shift our mindset to think of it in that way, we'll actually value and lean into it versus kind of going back to our traditional conversations that we preferred, which were in the store. Like,
well, because I can see you, right? So again, we have to also understand, and this is where training comes in, each different platform has its pluses and minuses, right? So we were talking about Clubhouse earlier on. Well, we can hear people talking, right? Same thing like phone calls. I can hear the emotion in your voice, or are you leaning in or are you hesitating, versus when I'm just reading, I'm sort of guessing. But I think if you put it on a framework of just starting to think through all of these processes and just keep it very basic. I try to keep it simple and say, if that person was standing in front of me and asked that question in the dealership, what would my answer be? If they ask me that over email, it probably should be the same thing. If they answer me on the phone, it should probably be the same thing. If not, then what's happening is we're starting to still default back to, unless you're here, it's really serious, right? And I think you're going to lose more customers. I think you're good. I know everybody likes to think, well, I'm going to go shop. Of course they're going to shop, because historically, we've trained our customers to shop us. Anybody who tells me you didn't, I have a strong disagreement, because then why do you have MSRP? Here's my dealer price. Here's today's price. Well, that means that the price you have listed isn't real, because you have a button that says get today's price. So then why do you have those other prices, right? And they know that, because we've trained them. If you come near the end of the month, you might get a better deal than the first of the month. And well, holidays are better. We've done all of that. And it's just not a sale. Retail always does sales, but it's this weird flux. And so our customers have been trained this way. So we can't look at it and react negatively to say, oh, they're going to shop us. Well, we taught them to do that. So assume that they're going to, but actually reverse Jedi mind trick them and give them the price when you assume all the rest of your competitors aren't. And you're going to be the only one that does it. And that might keep them there because you gave them the information. So if I got the information, most people are going to go, well, then why do I have to go somewhere else? I got the information I want. Let's roll. Let's at least continue down the path. Now, you could still screw the deal up, but at least you're the first one who's helped me. I'm going to at least stay with you.
Yeah, and the magic of that is that I really struggle to imagine that today's car shopper, you got an average transaction price of 38 grand or something like that on new, and 20 something for new or for used. They're not going to walk in and have a conversation with you without even having an idea of what the car costs. Right. So if you're in line with where they're at, you can automatically just say, oh, okay, this guy isn't, goofing off with me. He's being, or she is being transparent with me. In my mind, it should cost 37.4. This person just told me it costs 37.8. We're in the same conversation. Let's keep it going. Right. As opposed to the fear of not, who doesn't shop? We all have stories of salespeople, all have stories of their cousin bought from another dealership, family shops. Right. So it's unfair to assume that people aren't going to do that. But that was just my take on what you said. I totally agree with you.
But let me ask you a question. But to that point, I would challenge and push back a little bit that maybe we've lost this ability to retain our customers and really value those customers. I mean, my father, I remember when we were growing up, we had different models of cars, but he always bought from the same person. So when that person moved from the Ford dealership to the Pontiac dealership, guess what? We drove Pontiac, or we drove something else. He always would say, that's my car guy. He's the guy I go. I trust him. Right. Because it wasn't really the car. My father wasn't a car aficionado that go, Ford is the only thing I drive. He was like, I'm going over there because that person I trust. So have we lost that ability to really retain those customers, keep those customers, and that's a whole other conversation about what we do in service to keep those folks there. And we're so busy getting people to the website and trying to get people in. But hey, man, I got 100 new customers that I sold that never were in my database. Yay. But if I lost 150 out the back, a service to someone else because I'm not paying attention. So I think there's a little bit of this conversational commerce experience. How do we become that person to our customers again, where we are the trusted car person? So I don't have to go shop anybody. Right. I know I'm going to come back and Matt's going to give me a great deal. I'm not even going to worry. It's basically, hey, Matt, the new Accord's coming. Just send it to me. Just bring it to me. Like, I would think we should be spending more time focusing on that than some of the other things we're paying attention to.
Oh, I totally agree. It's that first shot, when you first meet that person, and then you have the opportunity to really wow them and earn their loyalty. You become a friend, and then you can sell them, and their family cars over the next 5 or 6 years. But it's
exactly.
But what you need is, you got to start off on the right foot. and the way that you start off on the right foot, I think, really leans into what you said, by understanding who they are, keeping the conversation going. So yeah, I think that we're both exactly on the right page, because I everybody wants somebody like your father, right?
Yeah.
They've built that relationship with, and they have that trusting, that long lasting relationship. You'll never get there though if you can't get past the first conversation. You'll never, you know what I mean? If you're chasing them off right up front.
Well, and part of that too is just bringing unique value to the table, right? So, and I almost think that if with transparency, there needs to be more value in some ways, right? If you're given pricing information up front, then you better have something else that differentiates you in terms of your level of service or other offerings, because the customer has the price. But I think going back to what you were saying, Glenn, in terms of like that personal relationship, that's where you see the Ollie Ritas of the world and the Frank Kitties and Janae Andrews and these people who, you know, they're not even taking leads. They're not even taking ups because they just have built such strong relationships in their communities and with people to be able to not even have to take a lead. Right?
Yeah, I think I heard, I think it was Jonathan Dawson the other day. He made a really wonderful point. He said, you know, if you're a salesperson and 5 years after you started, if you're, let's say you're in the same dealership or in the same town, if you're taking fresh ups after 5 years, you did something wrong.
Right.
Because you really should be building that network of, if you're an average salesperson, right? Let's say you're selling 15 cars, right? Or even 10 cars, let's say 10, that's 120. So that means by the time you're at 5 years, you're at 600 people you sold a car to. Are you telling me that some of those 600 didn't come back, or some of those 600 didn't recommend people that they should come, and then they told two friends and they told two friends that, you know, by that time I'm having, you know, if you want to take new ones, great, but you have at least half of your business, 3/4 of your business is repeat and referral. Now you're not 10, you're 20, because you're still selling 10 new, but I get 10 referrals. And I think that mentality is sometimes missing because we're in such a rush to just get new people in the door, and market versus retain.
Right. No, I totally agree with that. You know, it's every new customer costs what, between $400 and $600, depending upon who you talk to, but a phone call to somebody that you've already sold.
Yeah, that's time. That's time. That should be part of their job. But that's where again, conversational commerce is. How do we talk to our friends? How do we talk to our family? Well, why aren't we talking to our customers? Why aren't we I just keep saying, why are we still throwing obstacles in front of our customers, making it hard for them to get information, or just getting in touch with us with all this technology? You know, I buy it 3, 4, 5 years ago, not now. And as I said this morning on another podcast, you know, all the people who bought a car during this past year, during COVID, right? It was pretty easy. Dealers were willing to cut through all the, you know, paperwork, do everything over the phone. You know, they were probably downsized. I know in New Jersey, because the showroom wasn't available. So they had streamlined their staff. So they had the general manager probably there, maybe a desk manager, maybe your best BDC person. And guess what? Grosses were up, speed was, and then all of a sudden somebody came in, picked up the car, signed the paperwork. What do you think those customers are going to expect 3 years from now when they turn that lease in? 4 years when that car comes? What kind of experience do you think? Do you think that they're expecting us to go backwards? They're expecting it to be even faster and easier, or something so, you know, easy where somebody's calling them up and just saying, hey, I'm going to drop it in your driveway and just leave the keys on the dashboard and I'll take the other one. Something along the lines, but they're going to expect better. Not we're going backwards. And I'm sorry to say that I've seen a good number of dealers that once restrictions loosened up, they went right back to the way they were doing business before, because it's just the way they were successful versus struggles of change, which I can get. But sometimes in this industry, we think 30-day cycles. And I know it's the business. And when you say to a dealer, well, where do you want to be a year from now with this process, or 2 years? Because digital retailing is still new and it still hasn't figured itself out. So the technology, just think of technology a year from now, your product a year from now, 2 years from now. How awesome is it going to be? But we still discount it because it's not perfect now. But we all better be thinking about that, because the people who got sold this past year, 2023, 2024, we better be delivering something better.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on something that, I've been thinking about really through this whole pandemic is, will some of this stick, right? Like, we had, I think 3,000 dealers, in April or May that, reached out to us to sign up for payments and trade because what was happening right at that time. And, will it stick? So I think that's my first question of what you're seeing out there. And I think you kind of referenced that, but will this stick? Will we still have the passion for digital retailing when the pandemic goes away? And then the other thing that I just want to kind of ask you about is there's been all this buzz, and I don't want to name any of these companies because this is not a disrespect to them, but there's been these buzz of these kind of like disruptors, right, that are out there that are going direct to consumers and selling cars online and delivering it to their homes.
Yep.
The reason why I don't want to name them is I don't like to hate on those disruptors. Our industry has always kind of focused on disruptors that have come in and we've reacted and we've banded together and done all this. But to me, it's about the individual dealer reacting in terms of changes that they're going to do to be more competitive, against those disruptors, not hating on the disruptors. So that's a loaded question, but I want to get your thoughts on will this stuff stick? And then how does a dealer compete?
So I think with any change, I usually go with the 20%, 30% are going to go right back. 20% going to step on the gas and just go, we're going to dominate. But they were already doing digital retailing 2 years ago or infancy. They were already thinking about ways to make it easier for customers. So there's always those people who are always, as soon as everybody starts catching up, they're on to the next thing. I think the danger is more not going back. I think it's going to be the people who sort of got started and stopped. Right. So they threw your technology on the website, but they didn't think it through to process end. So it's there. So it's not as if I took it off your site and canceled. I don't think there may be some of those. But I think the bigger danger is they think I'm doing it when I just put the TrueCar tools on my site. And now I'm doing digital retailing and then wrapped around, I'm doing my old process. And it's just a little convoluted. So I think that's where I see that. Now, in terms of the second one, we were just talking about this in this clubhouse room. I get a little mad with dealers sometimes with this because those disruptors, if you look at the volume of what they actually sell, it's minuscule. It's minuscule. What did they sell last year? 250, right? 1,000, not a lot. Against all the other ones, not a lot. But the perception is we've allowed that perception without confronting it to allow them to say, we're super easy. Now, do they have some advantages? Yes. They can build their technology stack end to end with no disruptions, and it's all their technology versus sometimes dealers have this bolted onto this that doesn't talk to this, and maybe it talks to this. So there is that frustration. Maybe 3-4 years, those disruptors are going to come into the market, maybe not so much to sell their own inventory. They come to dealers. Someone was mentioning this today on the clubhouse that they thought, well, what if those disruptors come to dealers and say, we'll take your inventory and we'll sell it to you, but we can get you the best price because you're located in New Jersey. But I know there's interest in Montana, and in New Jersey, you can price it at $13,000, but in Montana, I could get you $16,000 for it. So I'll push it over there, but I'm going to take $1,000 off the top, and then you still get money, right? So you got to think different of how those inventory or how they sell. But where my frustration is when they complain about it, I said, well, where's your commercial that counters it? Because you could do everything they're doing. You're willing to do everything they do with new cars, or you're not going back at them and say, well, that's great. They dropped it into your driveway, but who's servicing it? Right. Or if you look at it, it sounds great. It's funny, we always talk about get testimonials to validate your marketing claims. Well, nobody's pointing out that some of their reviews are not that good. A lot of those customers are not that happy, but dealers have not pushed on that fact and really went out after them. Let the manufacturers could do it. But I think, to your point, I think a dealer needs to worry about their market. They should be going out and they should be advertising that if they're willing to say, we can do this over, as much or as little as you want. We can do this. We can drop it in your driveway. We'll service, we'll pick up service, we'll drop it, whatever you want to do. But you have to now start thinking about, how can we make it more convenient for the customer, right? Brian Benstock said the other day, and he always, he has some gems here or there, and I like Brian a lot. But he said, just thinking about service, why does the customer even have to be involved in this? Why does the customer even have to be at the dealership? If I pick up the car, service it, and drop it back in your driveway, why do you need to be here? Like you do not need to be involved in this at all. And once you go, yeah, you're right, I don't need to be involved in this. So what are you going to do to help that subset of people who would be willing to do that same thing? It's not everybody wants to buy a car online. I still want to come test drive it and look it and make sure, I don't know if the height, just reading the specs, hits my big head, or if my big head's going to fit in the car. But once that's done, why do I need to be here for 2-3 hours? Like, why can't I speed this along? So if I have that ability to provide you things, and we can do things online over the phone, so that once I go, yep, that's it, I could be out of here in a half an hour. That's perfect. I'm all good. And if we can work towards that, and again, what you're willing to do, other customers want to come in and do it all. That's okay. You just have to now starting to be more flexible and give more options to your customers, versus everybody has to follow your process, your one process to buy a car, versus now I have a variety of options based on what the customer wants. Right now, it's switching that little bit.
I agree with that. I wholeheartedly, especially from the efficiency place. But there's something I've been wanting to talk to you about, because when I first met Jonathan Dawson at NADA last year, when we could do things in person, one of the first things that jumped out to me was we spent some time talking about training, right? And everybody has their North Star, and my North Star is training. And I know that you are super big on training. Right. And I saw, in fact, on your page at PCG, you recently posted an article about, and it really resonated with me. It's like, to train or not to train, and that is the question of cost. And I want to talk about that if we can, if everybody on the call is okay with that. Just want to shift gears a little bit, talk to you about training and its importance that you see in this world with everything changing and evolving.
You see, the funny thing is, and yes, I think it's 100%. I'm all in on that. But I think the piece that's missing in that word track, and I think somewhere in the article I may have written it, is development. It's really training and development. Talk about training, but for a lot of people, training is the meeting. Training is go in there and watch Grant Cardone videos. Training is go do your product, right? But we're not helping them implement that. I mean, there was a dealer I went to, years ago because of travel, but I went in and I watched their meeting. He goes, "We train every single morning." I said, "Awesome." Sat in there, they watched like a module, maybe a 5-minute module, and it was a Grant Cardone, talking about objections or something along those lines. And so the manager attempted, to ask, well, what do you think we should do in this situation? And every question that he asked were answered by 2 people, and there was 15 people in there. So it was, everyone defaulted that these 2 are going to answer it so we can get out of here. And then the manager said, okay, so we got all this, let's go. And so I watched and I waited. And I said, so now what happens? He goes, what do you mean? I said, well, how do you know they're going to use this? How are you checking in on them, how they're using this or implementing? How are you going to help them? He goes, I don't know what you mean. And so I said, okay, that's great. I said, why don't you, in an hour or 2, or after you see salesperson with that customer, walk over there and say, so Matt, how did it go? Oh, it went great. So what did we talk about today in training about objections? Yeah. Did you use it? Oh, yeah, I did. How'd it go? Oh, it went really great. Oh, tell me what you did, right? So I'm starting to reinforce it. They know that I'm paying attention to it. They know that I'm going to come out and spot check them. It's the idea we were talking earlier about the Super Bowl, right? Tom Brady and everyone. Where are all the coaches? They're on the sidelines watching the game. They aren't there. Like if you came in the Super Bowl and all of a sudden, Andy Reid was gone and all the coaches were gone, you're like, what? And he's at home going, Oh, they're pros. They know how to do this. You're like, he's lost his mind. Fire him right now. Get a new coach in here. So we aren't really developing our people on a day-to-day basis, watching them play the game, go check on them, see how they're implementing the training and utilizing this. So training is really important, but if you're not implementing it, checking in on them, giving them feedback, putting them into scenarios, then you're never going to really have a phenomenal team. You're going to have a lot of people who went through education, but when they bring it out to the playing field, it just wouldn't happen in sports. So if you think of it as sport, you just wouldn't do that. We didn't do that with even in education in school. They gave us tests. They sent us home with homework. If we didn't come in with a homework, we got an F. If we failed the test, we failed the grade. How are we doing that with our employees? How are we quizzing them? How are we testing them? How are we checking on that it actually stuck and went down into the fingertips where they can implement this and use this? Or else all we did was check the box and said, oh, we did training and we feel good about ourselves.
That's so good. That's so good. And I think even just like with your school analogy, there's quizzes before the big test, right? Mm-hmm. Or from a coaching analogy, your coaching analogy, those coaches are doing a lot of coaching in the practice. They're probably doing even more coaching in the practices before the big game. Like if you're going to start coaching at the Super Bowl,
you're in trouble. But the other thing the other point about that is it's not just coaching, they're showing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. They're showing you how to do it. That's the way we learned, right? You have kids. You showed them how to throw a baseball. You showed them how to hold the pencil to write. You watched them. You held their hand. When they went to school and they went up to the chalkboard to do a math problem, the teacher was there and watched them, and then they showed them. So that's the way we learned. We watched it. We did it. Somebody was watching us, and they course corrected us. Yeah. Somehow, when we got to be adults and went into the workforce, we got into the way of teaching is we tell. We don't show. And when you just tell, the picture in your mind may not connect to the picture in your mind. And that's where the frustration comes. That's why we have all heard either come out of our own mouths or to us, oh, is that what you meant? I thought you meant, because the pictures didn't match. But if I show you and then I watch you do it, there's no misunderstanding. If you don't do it in the future, I can course correct you back, because I could say, well, Carrie, you were just doing this yesterday. What happened? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot. And we get them back. And then if they continue not to do it, wait a minute. Now it's not a knowing problem anymore. It's a doing problem. Now I have to have a conversation why you don't want to do it. Not that you don't know it, right? But we have a tendency to just keep harping on the knowing, and the person's looking at you going, this is why I hate you as a manager, because you're not really helping me, right? But if I'm involved that way and understand that, but a lot of leaders don't want to do it because they think it's disrespectful. Well, if I show Matt that, he's going to think I'm condescending. No, actually, Matt will make it think, oh, thank God you're showing me this, saves me time. And now I know what's going on. So I think it's, to your point, I think it's not just implementation. It's like, here, watch me go. Let's role play this objection. I'm going to throw something else at you. Here, throw anything at me and I'll show you how I use it. And they're like, oh my God, now I see it. All right, now go do it. And then you go out and watch them. So I think there's a couple different aspects, but I think the showing aspect of going out there and showing them how to do it. That's why, like, Jonathan Dawson is a really good trainer, because if you've ever watched him do it, he's out there rolling up his sleeves. He's not sitting there in the classroom and going, okay, guys, go out and do it. He's right next to them. He's in their ear. He's like, watch me now. That's what makes him and other trainers who are really good. It's probably because they're out there in rolling up their sleeves in the mix, watching the game being played, course correcting like a coach, versus I'm a manager behind my desk and I'll wait till something, bubbles up and comes into my office and then I'll deal with it. That's not the way you're going to win.
That's good. That's good. And just a plug for your podcast. You're in charge now. What podcast does? You speak a lot about this, like leadership.
Yep.
In managing and all of that. So check that out. So I want to, we're getting towards the end, and I want to kind of leave the audience with something very simple that they can, intangible, they can hold on to. So sure. You have somebody that's watching this right now, and we've been talking about conversational commerce and digital retailing. Mm-hmm. and maybe they didn't jump in during the pandemic. Let's just kind of like pretend they did not jump in to the hype of digital retailing, but they are convinced now. They've watched this interview. They are convinced that they need to start buying into this. Where do they even start? Like what would you say is just kind of the most basic level? Where do you start in terms of conversational commerce or digital retailing?
Great question. So I would start with saying, before you think about technology, go to that exercise we did. What do you want your customers to feel when they leave your dealership lot, when they drive over the curb and leave? How do you want them to feel? And then look at it and say, are we delivering that? Maybe you are. And so let's assume that you're delivering great customer service and you're saying, Glenn, I'm doing a great job. My customers are really happy. Well, now you start saying, well, how can I make it easier for them? What tools can I give them? What am I willing to do in terms of, would I let them play around with payments? Because if I can tie technology in with either the banks or the technology, and they could sort of play around with their payments, and then they could send it to me, would that be comfortable to you? Like, yeah, that's good. Trade-in. Are you willing to give them a price through the tool? And as long as it's verified when they get in, you're good. Pre-approved. Like, so now you start walking through, then you, when you're looking at technology, do you want people to have the ability to chat with your team right away? Do you want to have it all in one tool? It's really just thinking through what's technologies out there that's going to make it easier for your customers to feel like they're in control of getting some of this information. And then what technology is making it easier for my team to deliver on this. Then you can start going to all of the great technologies out there, or find a dealer that's doing it, that's in your 20 group, and say, let me pick your brain. What's working for you? How is it working for you? What were your struggles? I would find somebody also, before you pulled the trigger on anything, is go find a dealer that you respect that's doing it and say, if you were starting today, knowing everything you know, what would you do? Because from a dealer perspective, I can pontificate and say something from my perspective, and I'm a vendor and I'm a consultant, but I'm not living it day to day. I don't understand the frustrations of, well, this tool doesn't talk to that tool, and this tool is frustrating because of that, and there's a limit. But dealers understand that. And if there's any dealer out there that needs that help, reach out to Carrie, reach out to Matt, reach out to me. We all know dealers who are doing it well, but more importantly, we also know a lot of dealers who would be willing to sit down with you. One of our best panels, I think it was 2 DMSCs ago, it was 2019. Yeah, because 2020 we were virtual. And I had Todd Caputo and Gino Walsh, and I think Jared Kilway from the Germain group and Gino from the Cavalli group up there. And that's what I posed the question. I said, if you had to do it all over again, or what did you wish you knew now when you were starting? And the audience loved it because they were so open and willing to share and say, I wish I knew this. I wish I knew this. Boy, did I struggle doing this. If you guys are going to start, don't do this. So I think finding like-minded folks, but even before you have that conversation with them, you got to understand what your experience is and what you're willing to do and what you want to do with your team. How could I make it better? So even without a tool, right? Even if you put the tool aside, what if I asked you, if you click the button that says ask a question, are you willing to have it pop up to a chat in your dealership? If somebody says get an e-price, would you be willing for it to go to one of your salespeople or manager? Or, value your trade, would you have that go to your team internally? And if you say no, well, then I said, well, now we got to think of a different tool. But if you're like, yeah, great, because theoretically, you already have a payment calculator. You already have a trade-in tool, right? You already have a button that says get pre-approved. Theoretically, outside of F&I, that's, digital retailing just mushed them all together. I would say even before putting the tool on, I'd start saying to myself, what if I change some of these buttons to chat? How many more conversations am I going to have so they don't even have to get through the tool? All of a sudden, they're talking to my team. I can start negotiating over the phone. I'll get to the technology. I eventually have to. But if you haven't bought the technology yet, I'd start looking to what forms can I get rid of on my website and transition to chat so more people talk to my team. Because when they talk to your team, guess what happens? Lo and behold, they set appointments. Up, they show up. Up, you sell cars. You should be thinking of ways on your website that you're blocking conversations and get rid of them.
Very good.
Ways on your website that you're blocking conversations and get rid of them. That might be one of the best things I've heard in the 25 shows or 27 shows that we have done, Glenn. That is just fantastic. Glenn, I want to give you a sincere thank you for your time. Like I told you, I'd try to keep you for less than an hour. We would try to keep you for less than an hour, but I know that people are going to probably want to hear this one more time. How do they find you? Because you drop some serious knowledge nuggets, and I know they're going to want you. So how do they find you?
So as I said, and first off, I appreciate Matt, Carrie, you know how I feel about you guys. I appreciate you, love what you're doing, what value you bring besides just the technology, just your passion and your personalities to what you do. You care, you know, for WOCON and everything. You know, it's an amazing what you're doing for the industry. For me, you can reach out to me, connect with me on LinkedIn or Twitter. That's usually the two platforms I'm on a lot. Just my name, Glenn Pasch with 2 N's. My podcast launches usually every Wednesday. I just launched a new one today talking about how to, not a great subject, but how to fire somebody professionally. You know, if you have to let someone go, that's a very tricky conversation. There, and then I'm on Clubhouse for all of us iPhone users. Matt's going to jump on with his iPad eventually. Monday noon, Friday noon, I do a marketing room on Mondays. Friday, I do a leadership room. But as I said, I'm available. Please connect with me if I can help you in any way. Just reach out to me. I love just giving people, you know, looking at stuff. My team can look at things if you're not sure of something. So let me help you.
And that's East Coast, right? EST?
EST. I am East Coast time. Yes.
Brian Ortega, the digital marketing manager of Valley High Honda, is like, he just dropped the note. Glenn is on here with the fire. You got a fan out here watching the show with you right now. So shout out to Brian and shout out to Glenn. And thank you so much for absolute time. Carrie, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, no, thank you, Glenn. On behalf of our whole TrueCar team, we have a lot of people on our team that are watching this now. We really, really appreciate you. And congratulations on speaking once again at NAD and sharing all your wisdom. So
thanks, guys.
Hopefully later this year, Glenn, in person.
Appreciate it. All right. Take care.
Bye, Glenn. All right. So, wow, that was such a great interview. And I got to say, I didn't write it down fast enough, but my takeaway was his last statement, which was stop blocking conversations.
Absolutely. I love that. You know, what was that, Carrie? I'm sorry.
I said, stop blocking conversations through lead forms and other crazy things on your website. Right. I mean, that's so good.
I hope he doesn't mind that I'm going to hijack that line and I'm going to put it in some content and share it to the world, because that is super strong. And that was my key takeaway. But my second key takeaway was move past just training and get into developing. You know how passionate I am about, the people who actually sell, and the story that Glenn described about, people watching training modules and just parroting off answers, but not really applying it. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. So Glenn is just always just a fabulous resource, but the overarching conversational commerce, right?
Yeah. It's the whole, notion, and we've heard different people say it, but it's a whole notion of, if someone walked into your dealership right now, you wouldn't put hoops and hurdles in front of them. Right. You'd have a conversation with them right on the spot or whenever they wanted to talk to you. And you have to think about the digital world in that same way. Right. You wouldn't make someone wait to be able to interact. So good, Matt. So where do we go from here? We have, I think, 2 more shows this week tied to DA. So
tomorrow we have Lisette Gold. She is Google's head of automotive retail. And we are going to be talking about, guessed it, digital retailing, modern retailing, and they've also released a new dealer guidebook. We're going to be talking about that as well. And then on Friday, we get to announce the winners of the 21K challenge and those 4 dealerships that have been selected to have $2,500 donated to the charity or nonprofit of their choice with special guests. We're going to have David Riley from DAV. He is a past national commander, and of course, the Remsburgs, Corey and Craig Remsburg. I'm so excited. And you're going to be joining, right, Carrie?
Yes, I'm coming back. Coming back out of retirement.
I just realized there's one thing we forgot to do.
Yes.
We forgot to ask people to share this. So if you're still on, or if you're watching this and you're in automotive, make sure that you share this with your networks. The more people who get to see this conversation with Glenn and pick up his knowledge nuggets, the better off that they're going to be.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Matt, for having me back again, and I'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. And all
Well,
right.
bye, everyone.